This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Dustin Hoffman.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Today is Thursday, May the 16th, 2024. So glad you could join us here today. A little later on in the program, we'll talk with Mac Marshall of the United Soybean Board and the Soy Checkoff about the latest innovations and research they're doing, funded by the checkoff dollars. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at the markets. It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net. Sounds good. All right, we'll go ahead and get started here.
All right.
We're at the end of another trading day, and we're going to be talking with Curt Kimmel of agmarket.net. And Curt, what did we see happen in those grain markets here to start the day?
That's kind of a down Thursday, back and filling, a little follow through. Corn down about 5 cents across the board. The beans were mixed. Wheat down 3. This morning's weekly export sales report was within trade expectations. No ball of fire. We sold about a total of 14 million bushels of wheat. Corn sales were about 34 million bushels. And bean sales about 10 million bushels when you look at the old crop and new crop added together. Sorghum's been on fire, and it kind of slowed down on some sales there. They're starting to be a little tight on some sorghum stocks. Once we saw that report, real no market maker, kind of watching the wheat market. It's been the wild rodeo in through here. Talks of Russia has seen that frost. The news wires are reporting, well, that frost only affected about 1% of their growing region. So that kind of took the bullish enthusiasm out of the wheat market. But, still dry in southern Russia. Ukraine's still a little dry. Then we're seeing this wheat tour take place. We're seeing a lot better yields than a year ago, but the trade expected maybe just a little bit better out of it. So we'll continue to monitor these wheat crop tours and see what they come up with. But the big event will be actual wheat harvest as we move forward. We're going to have plenty of wheat, as of right now. The other thing kind of front and center is, of course, the weather pattern. We're a little bit behind average on planting progress, but there is a little bit of a window in here. Once we get past today's event, we're here in central Illinois. We're receiving some moisture now. But, if we can get through with a couple tenths, it wouldn't be long. We'd be back in the field. And it looks pretty clear in the first part of next week, subject to change for the most part. Locally, we got most of the beans in and up through here, and about half, 60% of the corn's in. But it varies widely. It's highly variable. You talk to some guys, they're done. Other guys just getting going. So it's going to come down to that last 15%, the crop getting in the ground, and they'll debate that for some time. Technically, we're not in very good shape here this week. We need a miracle tomorrow. We've got corn down 10 to 12 cents on the week here, soybeans down 2 to 3. Wheat market's unchanged, but on the corn market, we had some daily price reversals to the downside. We kind of followed through here, so this week's high is going to be fairly good resistance. And if we can't hold these recent lows, it's going to start to turn that short-term trend a little lower. Same thing on the beans. I mean, we topped out a week ago, but we're kind of struggling in through here. Then, of course, wheat. It had a pretty big reversal down. Then what I mean by that is the market made a new high, closed lower, and quite a bit lower. So technically, we need to be watching this week's highs here to see what type of action we get if we go test them again. The other thing this week so far is that crush report is reported. That's kind of a thorn in the side, that soybean crush, where you crush beans for meal and oil. It's expected to be 183 million bushels, down to 166 million bushels. So we got to get this crush momentum going back and try to put a stop to this or slow down the imports of this used cooking oil and other tallow products coming into the country. So we'll see how we finish out here on Friday. See if we can't have an up Friday.
All right, moving over to livestock, cattle and hogs. How did they fare today?
Not too bad. They on the fats, we're up about 280 for the week. The trend is sideways. Today they closed 70, 90 cents higher. Feeders up $1.20, $1.40. Hogs up 70, 80 cents there. On the cattle, we've been moving sideways in through here. Hopefully we can squeak out a higher close in through here. Demand looks very good. Box beef looks good. Cutouts look good. Hogs were about unchanged on the week from last Friday's close. Had about $3 to $4 trading range today. So we had a lot of jitteriness, nervousness, but so far we're about unchanged from last week. These hogs are kind of stuck in a little bit of a downtrend channel. We'll see if we'll see some demand come forward here. Loins $1.02, hams 86 cents, the bellies 123 at the wholesale level. So products just kind of stable in through here and just kind of buying some time here until we get this cookout season fired up.
All right. Well, if folks want to talk about some market strategies, maybe farmers are looking at finalizing that 24, bookings ahead of time, what's the best way for them to get in touch with agmarket.net?
1-800-779-1515, agmarket.net. Click on Until, and they'll cover what you just mentioned.
All right. Well, we thank you so much, Curt, for the insight, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Take care.
And that was Curt Kimmel of agmarket.net. Let's go ahead and take a look at the closing numbers on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network market screen.
At the close, July corn down 5.5 at $4.57 even. Soybeans up 2 3/4 at $12.16 1/4. Soy meal down $4 at $3.6770. Soy oil up 97 cents at $44.52. Chicago wheat down 2.5 at $6.63 1/4. Kansas wheat down 1 3/4 at $6.73 1/4. Minneapolis wheat down 6 1/4 at $7.20 3/4. Oats down 11 3/4 at $3.86. June live cattle up 77 cents at $179.02. Feeders up $1.47 at $257.35. Lean hogs up 87 cents at $98.37. Pork cutouts unchanged at $103.50. And Class 3 milk up 25 cents at $21.10.
And that's been a check of the closing market recap. We're going to take a short break and hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. When we come back, Mac Marshall of the United Soybean Board joins us. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Welcome back to AMPM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Well, during Washington Watch, we had the chance to talk with many people from different organizations about what's going on lately in the ag industry, get updates on policy issues as well. Had a chance to talk with Mac Marshall of the United Soybean Board and get an update of what they're doing with the research and development to help drive more demand for U.S. soybeans. With Mac Marshall of the United Soybean Board, so great to have you on again.
It's a pleasure to be here, Dustin. Great to see you, and it's great to be back in D.C.
It is always a good time here, and obviously with D.C., a lot of things being looked at, and talking a little bit about what's going on in the United Soybean Board, of course, the soybean industry right now. I mean, there's a lot of things you guys are focused on.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the case every year, and I think that's one of the things that's exciting about agriculture. Every year is a new year. Every year is a new crop, and in soy, those new crops each year have more and more opportunities of where they're going to be used. I mean, that's what our farmers who serve on the board at the United Soybean Board, that's what they're doing each year, is trying to set up the industry and the future of soybean farming in the best position possible. And that means research towards new innovations that you can help bring to market that can harness the power of soy and also showcase the value of soy, I think, to a greater and greater market, right? I mean, you certainly have, traditional uses, obviously food and soy being used in animal feed. Actually, we've got a bunch of these detailed here. You have your chickens and pigs, and animal ag is far and away our number one consumer here, but you've also got tractor similars in farming, but of course you can fill that tractor with biodiesel, or renewable diesel, clean burning from soybean oil, among other feedstocks. And then you've got your donuts here,
Of course, the important stuff.
Fried in high oleic soybean oil, of
Right.
course. So it really is a magical bean, and those are just some of the very high-level uses. And of course, the checkoff is not just a research checkoff; it's a research to promotion checkoff with a whole continuum, right? It's not just about researching things; it's about helping providing catalytic funding, bringing things to market, helping them succeed in the marketplace, and being able to report on it, being able to tell the story about it, and that's part of how these things ripple into the market. And I think the other important thing here too. I mean, let's consider there are roughly 500,000 soybean farmers in this country.
Right.
We got a population of 340 million people. We got fewer than 3.5 million people in this country who are farming. So about 1% of this population is actually involved in farming, according to the latest census of ag. So I think it becomes really, really critical to be able to talk about how the products of farming, and for us, specifically soy, how soy shows up in the lives of everybody around us. There's certainly food. That's a long-standing piece where soy has been used to nourish people for literally thousands of years through human use, and of course, animal ag as well. But newer innovations that have, built upon previous blocks of innovation, that plays a role in creating a better future. Let's go back to the 90s. Back in the 1990s, soybean oil had an established market in the food space, but a bunch of forward-thinking farmers said, hey, there's more opportunities of things we can do with this oil. What about biodiesel? Right? And so the biodiesel market eventually becomes viable, it becomes commercially viable in the 2000s. It scales up from there. And then you've got this next wave of innovation and engineering and ingenuity that brings us renewable diesel, a drop-in fuel that's a replacement for petroleum-based diesel. Then that really gets you thinking, what are all the things that we make with petroleum that you can make with soy instead? So that's why I'm excited about things like soy-based plastics. I meant to bring some today, and so it's a mea culpa for me, but we have these soy-based straws, which will biodegrade, I believe, in 90 days. So, really a nice sustainable solution for a product with, if it's made through traditional plastic, will not be sustainable. Well, you make it with soy, it's from the earth, back to the earth.
And that goes to all the things we talked about earlier with Patrick. The rubber in tires, the soles of your shoes, the treatment on the roads. We've been using soybean oil on gravel roads to cut down dust on farms for a long time. So every single thing that you guys come up with is another use for the farm to help drive demand, especially when we're looking at a situation right now where trade is not where we would hope it would be.
It's an interesting environment as I look at the weekly export data and how that's evolved, and you can see things like, our whole soybean export pace this year is the slowest since during the trade war. And I think there's two ways to look at that, right? You can look at the downside of it, which is, okay, where are we with Chinese demand? We've seen, Chinese purchases step back significantly, buying a lot of cheaper Brazilian beans right now. But let's look at the positive side of the story here. Why are we exporting fewer whole beans? Well, it's because now we're crushing a lot more domestically. Everything I talked about with renewable energy, that's driving a large chunk of demand for vegetable oils and fats, oils, and greases to use as feedstocks. And soybean oil is, on a volume basis and percentage basis, the most important feedstock used in domestic biomass-based diesel production. So as the market is searching for more and more of that to feed growth in renewable energy, well, you don't just get beans off the farm and then magically have renewable fuels.
Right.
You got all this intermediate stuff that has to happen. So you have to build crush. And this wave of crush plants that we're seeing, I believe 4 or 5 are coming online just in this calendar year alone. You don't crush for oil without also getting meal.
Right.
And so we might be crushing more beans here instead of exporting. But now, as we're producing more meal, we're exporting a lot more meal. And, when you think about trade and you think about some of the pains that were lived through, several years ago, it caused the soy industry, and particularly our partners at USEC, to really think differently about market diversification. And that's why when I think about diversification, you have geographic diversification, you've got channel diversification, you've got product diversification. Okay. So, geographies. A couple of years ago, we set a volume record of whole soybean exports and total soy complex exports, but didn't hit a record in any one of our top 20 markets. That's interesting if you think about it. That means that some of these earlier stage markets, have continued to see growth. If you look at soybean meal, that's going to markets in Latin America and Southeast Asia, where you have the demographics for growth. You have the income upside and opportunity for growth. You have the downstream animal agriculture and aquaculture coming online and growing. All of that is going to need more meal. And so, we're seeing the system work. I think we're about 15% ahead of last year's pace on soybean meal exports, and last year was a record pace. So, as we're crushing more, we're finding homes for it, and we're going to need to continue to do that, which is why USB has also invested towards expanding the Port of Grays Harbor in western Washington State. It's a critical meal terminal, taking capacity up from 3 million tons to 6 million tons by early 2026. I've been out there a couple times. That's absolutely critical, because when we have shifts and greater efficiency in transportation, that lowers the cost, that makes us more internationally competitive. And again, it also, leads to I think a clear point of delivery for farmers. When you have crush plants located in places that hadn't existed before.
Yep.
And that means lower basis hit, and that's important. It all starts with farmer financial sustainability.
All right. Well, farmers want to learn more about what the soybean checkoff is doing, what U.S. Soybean Board is doing to expand that use of soybeans. How do they do that?
Absolutely. You want to check out unitedsoybean.org as well as ussoy.org. We have all our social channels as well. If you follow me on LinkedIn as well as US Soy on LinkedIn, they're also on Instagram. We continually post a lot of content and updates about the innovations that are coming to market, as well as developments that are happening in the marketplace that are relevant for soy and soy farmers.
And that again was Mac Marshall of the United Soybean Board. And that brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all our content online at iowaagnet.com. Follow us on Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and on our YouTube channel. While you're there, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you're notified each time we put out a new video update. Also, don't forget about our free market podcast 3 times a day, openings, middays, and closings, with free analysis sent right to your mobile device. You can sign up through Amazon, Apple, Google, Spotify, and Podbean. From the IARN studios in Des Moines, I'm Dustin Huffman. For Andy Peterson, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson, I thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.